What's up, man? Glad to finally have you on, man. I'm excited about this chat, and this is a dude that I hope to have come on as often as possible, maybe every few weeks, whenever there's something relevant in boxing to talk about. He lives in the area. Wally, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
And I got it straight today. I've known him for a long time, but I always just call him Wally, and I always forget what his first name is. So for the record, your name is?
Jonathan Walley.
Thank you, sir.
There you go.
So let's start with just a little bit of background, man. Tell me about how you got into boxing.
Yeah, so I had a lot of. Okay,
You
sorry.
go.
Yeah, so I got into boxing. One of my good friends growing up was training at Tin Goose.
Ten Goose, yeah,
Yeah.
Goosen Brothers.
Joe Goosen was training him at the time, and at the time I was in the transitional phase of my life,
Yeah,
and he told me, come to the gym because we grew up a lot.
you were out here in California.
Yeah, I grew up in L.A.
Okay.
I grew up around here, and like I said, he told me to come to the gym. Um, it's the weirdest thing that happened because basically from off the street, it'd be the equivalent of like if you played basketball and like Phil Jackson was in
Yeah.
the gym and was like, "Hey, okay, sure, I'll show you how to do this." Like this don't happen. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I didn't know Joe Goose from a can of paint at the time. You know what I mean?
You didn't even know who he
Oh,
was.
I had no idea. I didn't even watch boxing at that time.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't even watch boxing at the time, and so came in. Just things made a lot of sense to me,
Yeah.
and because Joe has a very, very special way of getting a message across to people, and then to me particularly.
Yeah.
And so that was honestly from day one. I felt like that. So came to the gym. I always joke with him about this. I go like, you tricked me because I was supposed to be a fighter, and now
Now you're a coach.
yeah. So
What and about roughly how long ago was that?
I was a teenager, late teen, probably, maybe like 17,
And that you're how old are you now?
30. I just turned
Damn,
30.
you've been
yeah.
working with him for 13 years.
Yeah, yeah,
Yo, that's like getting a PhD, but like starting at the PhD level, skipping the undergrad and all that.
correct. Fun fact, like my first fight I ever worked, it wasn't for a world title, but it was a title fight with a former Olympian.
Really?
The first fight I ever worked.
That's
First fight I ever worked. Yeah,
nuts. And then at the time, so he had some brothers. Were they still alive?
yeah.
Okay.
Dan was there. Everybody was there. Everybody was there.
So my first experience with them is, I mean, number one, watching tape, and I remember, no, even before that, I'm pretty sure before that, my sister got into boxing, and she had 5 or 6 fights, and my dad didn't want her to box, and so she hooked up with the Goosens, and at the time they had a camp out in Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
I was like 15 or 16. I was in military school, and she was like, "Dad, I'm doing this," and they were like, they had like a chokehold on the sport at the time.
Yeah.
They were one of the biggest powerhouses
Yeah.
from not just a training and management standpoint, but promotion standpoint.
For sure.
And so I went out there, and she was training, and I think they had David Reed was in camp, if you remember that name from way
do.
back when.
Yeah, I do.
Claybay, who never really made it to championship level. He was a heavyweight. Lawrence Claybay, he was like a good Olympian.
Okay.
You may have not run into him. And a few. And I went out. I snuck off campus, like forged a letter from my parents saying I could leave. I was in military school. Bought my own ticket. It was like $300. That's all I had.
Yeah.
And I just flew out there to check on her. And I remember hanging around, and they had like a machine going on. I remember that.
Yeah.
And like it was very like, it was a boxing gym, but I just remember it's like systematic, like people coming in throughout the day, and
The one thing that I can give my gym pride on is something that Joe's imputed to me and basically given me that format.
yeah,
It's very, very systematic. You get a lot of guys that that will work with me and Joe, and they'll say like, I've never felt this professional in my career.
really,
All the time, all the time, all the time. From something even that you might take for granted, like making weight, to where like there's guys that I currently work with now that
Yeah.
they used to struggle making the weight, and now they make it easy, just because everything's systematic. No stone gets left unturned.
it's impressive, man. And the second experience I had was just being in awe because, people look at this what happens in the ring, and that's one thing in the skills, but I try to look at like what's happening in the corner and everything else because that's such a big part of the sport. And so it was the fight with the guy Corrales,
Okay.
and Castillo, I think.
Okay.
And I
Great
think,
fight.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think Castillo had dropped him a couple times, but
Yeah.
it's like, and I remember talking to my dad about this. He's actually the one that hit me. He was like, "You got to sit down and watch this." And he said, "Man, this is a guy, Corrales, who knew what he could do. He knew he had a hammer in his glove, and he's like, if I could just get a hold of this
Yeah.
MF." And so we went back and watched it, and what impressed me is towards the end, he kept getting knocked down, and he spit his mouthpiece out, which
Yeah.
means he wants to get back in it. He
sure.
doesn't want the fight to be over.
For sure.
And then he'd go back to the corner, and from my perspective, Joe,
Joe.
yeah, was there, and he would take his time,
He did.
put the water on the mouthpiece,
did.
put
He
it
did.
back in, a couple seconds,
Yeah.
and then he kept letting them know, like, and they were both like, "Yo, we're gonna win this fight."
It's so Joe. Obviously, we've talked about this this particular fight a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the greatest fights ever by a lot of people's standards and my standard as well.
Yeah,
Joe always tells me, you know, when you're watching the fight in real time, like it's easy to watch it at home and kind of see, especially now that you're watching it back. I mean, we're sitting here talking about it, you know, over 20 years later. So you're watching the fight at home, and it's kind of hard to see what's going on. But when you know that you've put in those type of rounds in the gym, and you know what type of shape this guy's in, and then you see a guy, he goes down, he gets hit with a good shot with a knockout artist,
Yep.
right?
Castillo.
He goes down, and he decides to spit out his mouthpiece, right? Then the referee takes his mouthpiece, and then the referee goes, "I'm taking a point from you." And then you start arguing with the referee.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this guy's good to go. You get what I'm saying? When
Yeah.
you know all this knowledge in the back of your mind, you're
You know
saying,
what you
okay,
got.
cool, right. Then that happens, and Joe takes his time. You know,
Yep.
he was older at then, so he became an old man, you know,
Yep.
putting the mouthpiece back in and
Elder
everything.
statesman.
You know, like I said, that's a very, you know, experience. And then your own, you know, ability and what you know you have on Castillo, Corrales' standpoint, you're saying to yourself, like, okay, we're still good. You know, we have a very good game plan. We have a very good training camp, and we're still in this fight. You know, and it was a very back and forth fight. You know, I think Corrales was probably down on the scorecards at the time of the knockout.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, he got a knockdown, and then he had a point taken away. You know, so I think 2 knockdowns actually. So
Yep.
But like I said, you know. That was one of the great fights.
And it was crazy because for me, so the last thing I'll say on it, I think, well, and just to be clear for people who haven't watched that fight and don't remember, you know, that era or aren't aware of that era, Castillo, I'm pretty sure was, you know, people would argue that he's one of the few people to actually beat Floyd, even though he didn't get the decision. It was Castillo, right?
Yep, correct.
So this is one of the best fighters of the time. And then Corrales gets back up. He just keeps finding a way to stay in the fight and he's like, okay, give him the point.
Yep.
I'm gonna knock this guy out. Give him the point. I need time.
Yep.
And then he went back there and knocked him out. So if you haven't seen that fight, please go see it.
Please
and
go watch that fight, yeah.
It's a pleasure to get to chat through that with you. And so I want to get back to kind of your career as a coach. And every time you come on, I would like to talk about it more. And there's some questions I have for you about it as a coach. But before we get into that, I want to jump a little bit to some current events.
Okay.
First, let's start with what just happened last week. Got to talk about it. I'm sure you're sick of talking about it. It was the circus match, which I was happy to see. When I called it circus, I mean that with love because most people don't know boxing, as we know it today, really started in a circus. Madison Square Garden used to be a circus, and it transitioned to being more and more of a legitimate sport. But we all know boxing at its best is when we have characters involved, interesting people that can also fight, like Muhammad Ali, etc. And I think last weekend was an example of boxing at its best from an entertainment standpoint. But some say maybe it was too much entertainment, not enough competitiveness. I was excited to watch it. 70,000 people were there. Sponsors were there. 100 million home. So I'm not criticizing, but I do think we need to talk about it from a spectator entertainment standpoint, but then also just from a boxing purist standpoint. What was your opinion of the fight? What did you like? What did you not like, etc.?
So first of all, the whole card was actually entertaining. It was a very good card. You know, you had Mario Barrios on there.
Yeah.
Versus Abel Ramos.
Yeah.
That was a great fight. So good it ended up being a draw. Then you had Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano.
Yep.
That
one of the best.
I mean, you put
Let's
those two
talk
in the
about
ring.
that.
You put those two in the ring. Clearly, it's fireworks every single time. You know.
Have you
Who won? I was live for both fights. Ironically, I
really?
was live for both fights. I was live for the one in New York, and I was live for the one in Dallas, Texas.
Nice.
I was maybe 2-3 rows back for the one in Dallas, and maybe like another like 4 or 5 in New York. So
Nice.
like I said, it was those two. I mean, boxing is obviously male dominated,
Yep.
right? So just from the numbers, I don't watch too much women's boxing.
Yep.
Liam Smith had just fought Jesse Vargas, and I know Jesse Vargas, and I was kind of bummed out because he got stopped by Liam Smith. I know Liam as well, and I'm familiar with him. We're good acquaintances, but I hang out with Jesse Vargas. I mean, clearly he's from here.
Yeah.
He lives in America anyway. So I was really bummed out by that, and then these two women got into the ring, and my mind was blown. This is in New York.
Yeah.
One of the best fights I saw that year, for sure. For sure. One of the best fights I saw
The one in New York.
The one in New York.
Okay.
Then they rematch each other.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. Like, if you're saying to yourself, let's make these adjustments to have a better fight, but then you look at these two ladies fight, you're going like, well, they kind of got to do this to make the fight happen a certain way. You get what I'm saying?
You mean because that's what people want to see?
No, it's their styles.
Oh, yeah.
Because you gotta remember, you got Amanda Serrano coming up from like 3 weight classes.
Yeah.
Like her career isn't at this weight class.
She's time, yeah.
So
small.
yeah, so like I said, like for her, she has to do a certain thing, and then Katie Taylor, like this is what she does. So those two together is just always going to be fireworks.
Yeah.
So now fast forward to this past weekend. An explosion again. I mean, really, I get sometimes it's hard for me to even talk about it because when I start thinking about this, I'm like, man, what the, you know what I mean? Because like that. I mean, it's crazy. Like these, like it's crazy. It is crazy. Like,
how would you, if you think, if I'm, maybe I'll be wrong and I'll think differently next week. But right now, as I said, I can't think of a more exciting. Let's just talk women for a moment. I can't think of a more exciting women's fight that I've ever seen. When you look at the talent level, not just the fact that they're banging and scrap, but the talent level and the fact that they're banging and scrapping and the amount of grit they showed and the exchanges with that level of talent and also the credential, they're already considered greats.
Correct.
And the biggest stage ever.
Correct.
I don't know that I've ever seen a woman's fight like that and very few men's fights like that.
No. You got to pack. So first, it was at the Garden. It was packed then.
Nuts when you think about it.
Then now you have it at Cowboy Stadium.
Yep.
That was packed then.
Yep.
Then you put, like you said, the caliber fighters that they are, and then you put the stakes that are on the line and everything else that goes with that. Then it's a grudge match.
Yep.
You get what I'm saying? And to just perform at that level that regularly, they're off the charts. And you're right. I don't think I can think of another fight of that magnitude.
I'm trying. I can't.
No. I put like this. Put the women thing aside, you'd be hard pressed to find men's boxing. With that type of magnitude, there's very few times you can find it. You know what I mean? And they did there. And to transition into the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight. So I wasn't gonna miss it because.
Oh, hold on. Before we get to Jake Paul and just, obviously that's what we want to talk about. But I gotta ask you because I think, let's just say of this era, I think that's top 10, one of the best fights of all time. It's Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. Maybe I'll feel different, but right now, to me, best
no, it was
fights,
a great fight. It was a great fight.
Scorecard, first fight and second fight. Where are you at? And feel free to be political, but I just need a comment on that.
Listen. You got 3 judges that choose the winner, basically, right? I'm not a judge. I don't pretend to be a judge. But I will say this. Amanda Serrano landed a lot more, threw a lot more.
She landed a lot more punches.
In a fight to where punch output matters, I don't know how you lose that fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With no knockdowns. There was a lot to be said about headbutts that just got swept under the rug. But again, you have to deal with that as the fight's going on, not after the fact, complaining about it. You have to get on top of it. I mean, from round one, there's times where some of my guys, they're getting hit right on the belt line. Now it's a legal shot. I know it's a legal shot, but I know as the fight progresses, this probably is going to be a problem.
It's affecting your fighter
For sure. And so it'll be a legal shot, and I'll still say something about the ref to it, or inform the commission. Can you tell the ref about these low blows?
Yeah.
Now they're right on the belt line. Legally, they're not low blows, but I just wanted in the back of his mind, like, hey, maybe I should look out for this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, like I said, you need to have these type of issues dealt with as the fight is going on. And I think, it caused a very, very gruesome cut over her eye. That's a horrible place to get a cut, especially a cut that deep. She's going to need to have plastic surgery on it for sure.
For sure.
Because that was a very, very nasty cut.
And so is it close? Could have gone either way, and you feel like she had the edge? Or do you think it was decisively, if you were judging it, decisively for Amanda Serrano? Not taking anything away from Katie because she's a great and she did what she's supposed to do. But you think Serrano should have won both fights, the second or the first one?
If I were to judge it, I would say Amanda won both of them.
Okay.
But good thing I didn't judge it because we had these two fights.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So,
true.
like I said, if I were to judge it, I would say Amanda won the first fight. To be honest with you, so here's the thing. The first fight, I remember vividly, it was a lot of a consistent pace from Amanda.
Yeah.
She was consistently doing her thing.
Yeah.
But the thing with Katie is some fighters, their work is just so clean that whatever they do, it just looks very eye-catching.
You can see it.
Yeah.
It's clear.
And that's how Katie Taylor fights. It's very, very eye-catching. It doesn't matter. She could shadow box and it would look good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas, Amanda has a lot of skill, and she does a lot of subtle things that I don't think most people will catch. So that's the hard part about when you're looking at the fight.
I think there's something to be said for, and I don't know the history of all the judges, but I do know when I started watching boxing before I was a boxer, and I watched a lot of boxing, grew up in the sport, grew up in the gym, etc.
Yeah.
But then I spent, 7 years entrenched in it, training every day, fighting. I fought 15 times in 3 years. And my eyes were different. I could see things I just couldn't see before because I could just catch things at like milliseconds. And so when I watch fights and I hear the commentators, I get really frustrated sometimes because a lot of the commentators have never boxed. Forget the judges.
For sure.
Most of them haven't boxed.
For sure.
And now I realize I don't get as frustrated with them because they just can't see.
They just don't know. It's ignorance in its truest definition.
Yeah.
It's not to. The only reason why I say it goes against them is because you should have this. Like, you should be at gym. If you're going to be a judge on a fight for this type of level, you should be at gyms even during the week once or twice.
Yeah.
Looking at sparring, seeing, okay, this
Understanding
guy,
the fighter.
you know what I mean?
That's a good point.
Just how we are, you
Yeah.
know? There's referees, especially the good ones. I've seen Jack Reese at my gym in the ring, controlling sparring even. Literally.
Getting used to it.
Literally refereeing sparring with amateurs even. You know what I mean? So, but that type of stuff makes a difference.
Yeah.
That type of stuff makes a difference. And, it's like, how can you, do whatever you do during the week all month long, then you get this call once or twice a month, and then now you're supposed to
Judge boxing.
you have someone's career in your hands.
Yeah.
But you only do this twice a month. What profession would even allow that? You know what I mean? So you would definitely need to. And don't get me wrong, these guys, they know what they're doing, and they have a lot of these guys have a lot of experience. It's just sometimes, they should be a lot sharper. I'll just leave it like that. They should be a lot more sharper when it comes to some of the things that, or at least certain fights should have a certain type of judge, and that type of judge should be a lot sharper.
Yeah.
So
At that level, we need the best judges with the most
100%,
experience, and so on and so forth.
100%.
All right, thank you, man. Because I think look, was it that fight as high profile as the Tyson Paul fight? No. Was it high profile for boxing heads? Probably the best fight we've seen. So I think we need to talk about it.
Yeah.
So tell me about the Tyson Paul fight, man. What all your feelings, your breakdown of it, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I wasn't gonna miss this fight because I said to myself, I get to go to a Tyson fight.
Yeah.
I mean, not really being alive in that era.
Yeah.
Is a little bit different. I mean, I was born, but not. I was a baby. I was a kid.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I wanted to go to a Tyson fight, so I went. That being said, it had everything that you wanted for a big fight. I really do. I put it like this: there's not a lot of professional fighters right now that if you told them, "Hey, you're gonna fight Mike Tyson," that they'd be up for the call.
Yeah, none.
That's realistically, they're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
Especially a dude 5 fights, 10 fights. Like if you told them that, they would go, "What?" So, as far as I'm concerned, with what Jake Paul is doing, this is what I honestly think. I think a lot of people are more so upset about the money that he's making.
Yeah.
Because if you told me, or if you told people that Jake Paul was going to fight Mike Tyson for $5,000, they wouldn't bat an eye.
Yeah.
But since he's able to generate this type of money and make this type of money, now they have a problem with it.
That's right.
Because nobody's going to fight. If you told some prospect even with 5 fights, hey, this dude just retired from MMA last year. He was a multi-time champion in mixed martial arts in the UFC, and you're going to fight this guy twice. He'd be like, what are you talking about? Yeah. I'm not fighting this guy. But he did that. Jake Paul did that.
He stepped up and did it.
So, like I said, he's taking risks. He has a name to where he can control the type of risks he's taking, I think.
Yeah.
But all that goes with everything else. You know what I mean? Like I said, I think the biggest problem that people are having is the money that he's making. But he's generating the people coming to watch. So it's like, what are you talking about?
He's the draw.
I mean? So that's what I think about him in particular.
Okay, so that's the business side of it, and also you articulated why some people have a problem with Jake when they really shouldn't, right? They should be applauding. Right. At least I feel that, and I really do feel that. I think I'm like anybody else. I want to fight him, right? And it's a big fight, and who doesn't want that fight?
Sure.
So I'll say what I want to say to get him to poke his head out, but I couldn't agree with you more. And I've said for a long time, like, he's also starting to get kind of good for that level of fight as well.
So you can clearly see the development. Yeah. That's the thing. See, it'd be one thing if these fights are getting easier or if his performances are getting worse. He's getting better,
Yeah.
and substantially better. So it's like, and the risk that he's taking, they're right on par with what he's doing. Like,
you see the improvement, right?
Yeah. How many guys are going to fight a bare knuckle champion?
Yeah, that's a good point. How many guys are going to fight the Spider, even at that age, right? And you only have 3 or 4 fights. And I think that the lost thing on him, and then I know you wanted to talk about the fight, but is if you dedicate, he keeps saying 3 years. He's been boxing for about 5 years, training.
It's been longer than that because I've sparred with him and his brother.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, a few times.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So he's been boxing for a while. But he's been fighting for about that amount of time.
What any qualities that you notice in him? You always can tell potential in guys even before they start to get sharpened.
So I always told both of them actually, like, I think Jake's a little bit better because he's a little bit smarter.
Yeah.
Logan is big and strong, but his style is, he just kind of, he comes right at you. So it's like it's a little bit easier to deal with. Where Jake is a little bit more craftier, and the shots, they both got a little bit of pop.
Yeah.
But Jake's shots have a little bit more of like a sting,
Just heavy-handed, naturally.
They're both relatively heavy-handed. Logan's significantly more heavy-handed than Jake, but Jake has a good like sting to it. That pop. It's a good snapping power. So and he's very smart. Like he'll like kind of box you and like be smart and be tricky about it. Like I remember specifically one time I was boxing and I was kind of walking to him. I was like, "This motherfucker's trying to set me up." Yeah, like,
you could tell.
You know what I mean? Like I was like, "Where the hell did that come from?"
Aptitude.
So like I said, like he's a little bit trickier and a little bit more clever than the two. I remember that specifically. So like how I would do it was I would do 4 with Logan, I would do 4 with Jake.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point to where I remember like feeling like, nah, put Jake in first.
Got it. Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
be fresh.
So, and at the time, I was fighting at junior middleweight and these guys walking around, 200 pounds. So in my head, I'm like, at least let me go with the like sharper one first.
Fresh. Yeah.
So, but like I said, I knew even then, like they both, I remember telling Joe this. Like, I remember one time I boxed with them, and then I went over to my gym, and I was telling him, I was like, no, they're pretty good. Like, it's obviously amateur level stuff at that time, but they're pretty good. And then Logan's doing his thing, and
Yeah.
Jake continued to do boxing.
Yeah.
And he can afford to get good coaches, and I think right now this is like the best coaching set that he's had with him. You can see where and how and why and what with what he's doing right now more than anything else. I think it was kind of a little bit all over the place before, but now he's really focused in on what he's doing.
Yeah.
And like I said, these risks that he's taking, I mean, nobody's really looking to do this. You know what I mean? So
in that big of a stage is nerve-wracking.
most people would freeze in the moment, let alone be able to perform against the guys that he's performing against. You know what I mean? So
people need to appreciate that, and I think you saw it, and I'm glad. I didn't know you had sparred with them, but from what I gathered, they were high school athletes, wrestlers.
very athletic, very strong, both of them. Very game too. I remember that about them. Like, I would catch them with a couple shots, and I'd kind of ease off, and it would almost like they try to get it back almost. I'm like, oh, okay. I like that. I did that.
But that's what you want to see, and then you can develop that, and then you have great trainers, great sparring, supplementation, training, all that.
Everything.
There's a lot of guys who spent 5 or 6 years and then got right to the top level. So I'll come back to that. Tell me about how you called what happened in that ring that night, and how did you feel about it from both fighters' perspective?
So in my head, and I can show you in a second. Okay. I have a voice recording of what I thought was going to happen before the fight because people were asking me.
You're
about
good
the
at
fight.
that, yeah.
So I basically told him, I go, look, there's one or two things going to happen. Mike's going to knock him out within the first round or so.
Yeah.
Or it's going to go decision. Jake's going to win, and they'll both play along with each other. That's basically how I thought it was going to go. Things turned out the way that they turned out, but that's what I said before the fight even, and that's what I really thought about it because Mike is a legend.
Yep.
Mike is we're talking about Mike Tyson right now. He hasn't fought in 30 years. You get what I'm saying? So, he's always going to be a part of the sport. He's one of the few guys that it doesn't matter. You don't even remember what his record is, and you just think of Mike Tyson.
Yeah, it's Mike. You don't need to.
So, like I said, if you get Mike Tyson, he's able to make $20, $30, $40 million off of fighting this guy that and I was watching him fight going like, oh, he still like has everything that he has.
You see him moving his head?
The subtle defensive, traits that he has, like it's all still there, just at a different speed. He's 60 years old. You know what I mean? And so like I said, I thought it was going to be one of those things where it was like, okay, Jake isn't going to be able to do what he thinks he's going to be able to do against him.
Yeah.
But he'll try for a second until he realizes it's kind of risky doing it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, you can say, oh, man, Jake should have went for the knockout. But you're not the one in there with Mike Tyson. So, so you play it how you want to, I guess. But, that's basically what I thought would happen going into the fight. I actually bet on the fight. So
you did?
Yeah, I did.
Can you share what you did? Or?
Yeah, Jake by decision.
That's what you bet?
Literally.
So, man, my call was hold on. My call was that it's going to be the first 3 rounds, Mike has the advantage because he's got the experience, and he's Mike.
Sure.
I got to say that, whether I'm right or wrong.
Sure.
And then if it goes past 3 rounds, Jake has the advantage because I think when you're older, it's just harder to recover between rounds.
Sure.
And I just felt like he would play it safe. And then I felt that Jake, and I wish I had made a post about this so people don't think I'm full of it. And I did make my call, but the one thing I left off on my call was that I think Jake was going to get to the point where he felt like he could start to hurt him and maybe stop him or knock him down.
Yeah.
And that it was going to be up to him to decide whether he wants to be considered the supervillain and hurt him or back off, because Larry Holmes did it with Ali and people hated him forever. And he admittedly backed off. So I feel like it went exactly the way you said it and the way in my gut I felt it might go.
Like I said, I thought it would be more so of Jake thought because look, I don't care who you are. If you're 5 years into fighting, a dude who's been at the top 4 forever isn't going to really let you hurt them.
Yeah.
Especially like, Mike is really a counterpuncher. You see all the highlight reel stuff, but like, how does it happen? right? So if you're a good counterpuncher, you're a good defender.
Yeah.
So if nothing else, you keep yourself safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Nobody's 5 years in is going to be able to do that. Now, unless you have some crazy type of height, physical ability, and power, like this isn't, Mike Tyson against Wilder.
Yeah.
We're talking about,
This is
Jake Paul is developing and he's getting better, each time out. You can see it. But he's not on the level of someone where, like, he's going to be able to hurt a legend. You get what I'm saying?
well, and then secondly, I think my call was if he got to the point where he felt like, yo, I'm gonna back off because if I'm him, I'm like, yo, I could like open up a little bit, but it is Mike. You know what could happen. But I think at that level, even if he wanted to carry him, it takes a lot of skill to me to carry a fighter
somebody
without people noticing.
For sure.
And he's not that level yet,
No,
which is fine.
And even if, like, here's the thing. If I'm in the corner, I'm telling him, Jake, he's 6 years old. He can't move his feet. Box him. Don't get hit. Leave it at that.
Yeah.
I don't see the problem with that. You guys came for a fight. What the hell? You know what I mean? So, that's just me, putting my coaching hat on, right?
Yeah.
And with all due respects to Tyson as well, like I said, he got in the ring and performed at 60 years old.
What do you want from him? Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't have a problem with any of it.
All right. So let's talk about what's next for Jake Paul, right?
Mm-hmm.
What fight do you think is likely, and which fight do you want to see? I'm going to tell you real quick so you can respond to this.
Okay.
The fight I want to see the most is him versus. I'd love to see the fight between Andre and him because I think there's some chatter about that, and like I love Andre. I like Andre uses this term like who's your legend? He's my legend because he's in my time.
Sure.
I know him. He's our age.
Sure.
But the way he carried himself, he was a complete throwback. He reminds me of Archie Moore a lot, not just because him in the ring, but outside the ring. I'm an Andre fan, and I just feel like he was underappreciated because he ran through everybody that he should have fought over a 6-year period before they became mega names. They were names, but mega names, and he cleaned out the division, and there was no one else to fight. So I want to see that fight, and they're about the same size. 6'1", walk around above 200 pounds. But the fight, so that's that. But I do think an even better fight is the Canelo fight because Canelo is not that big, and I do think them in the ring together is going to look a little bit like David and Goliath because of Jake's physical size. He's like, he's fought tall guys, but Jake's thick,
Sure.
And but lastly, to me, one of the most exciting fights for the tit for tat and everything would be the fight between him and Ryan Garcia. So that's where I'm at with it. Where are you at with it?
So I hadn't thought of any of those names because realistically,
it's crazy, all of them. But.
Yeah, realistically, nothing's gonna happen it's gonna be one-sided with Andre Ward. It's gonna be one-sided with the Canelo.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be one-sided with the Ryan Garcia.
Yeah.
So I hadn't even thought about any of those names. If I'm being honest, I don't think about who Jake Paul fights, and that's part of why I get to enjoy it so much because whoever he fights, it's normally pretty surprising because what do you mean you're gonna fight Mike Perry?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Damn, you fight Anderson Silva. Okay, you know what I mean?
He picks
Mike Tyson. You know what I mean? That's why
Left
I don't,
field.
I don't pay attention to it too much. And like I said, it's part of the reason why it's so, and I enjoy it so much because, like I said, it's cool especially seeing him from the beginning and then seeing what he's doing now. That's why I get to enjoy it so much because the development is there. I'm really into that. And then it's surprising just in general, it's surprising seeing what he's going to do next. So I don't know. I hadn't thought about it. Those names, I mean, if he does it, respect, because like I said, if you look at anybody in the super middleweight division right now, aside from maybe 3 or 4 names, none of those guys would even think of fighting an Andre Ward.
Yeah.
So
nobody wants to mess with that. Why?
Let alone a Canelo. And when I say these names, I'm talking business aside. Sure, if they're gonna offer you $1 million to fight somebody, sorry mom, I'll fight you too. You know what I mean? So, but I'm saying you're gonna, for the money you'll do it. But I'm saying if it's the same amount of money that you're used to making right now, you fight these guys. These guys aren't doing it. These guys aren't doing it.
Because there's only so much money he can grab, or he can ask for. So why take Andre or Canelo, but you can take
whoever.
Yeah.
So again, like I said, I don't think about who he fights.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's pretty cool watching him do his thing. you know. But I tend to focus on the other side of boxing. You know, it's like I like to call it.
So last two fights, and then I just got one question for you as a coach.
Okay.
Talk to me about what you think. Your feedback on Anthony Joshua's last appearance, and what do you think he should do going forward? And then how would you script the next 12 months or call it 8 months of the heavyweight division if you could just wave a magic wand and make it happen? Because the people who are still in play, you got Joshua still in play, Deontay's still in play,
Yeah.
the big Zhang, the guy from China is still in play. You got Dubois doing his thing, and you got Fury. You got
Parker's in the mix as well.
Parker. We can't forget about him. Like the merit is there, and then of course the champion. So
Or Ortiz.
yeah,
Ruiz. There's a lot of guys.
So
Miller. People like to forget about Miller. Miller's.
and he put on a great performance.
I thought
recently.
he won. I like Andy, but I thought Miller won.
Yep.
He won pretty handily, to be honest with you.
I'm 100% with you on that. So I would just say, talk to me about Joshua's last appearance. What do you think's next for him, and then script the next 8 months of the heavyweight division.
Joshua
If in a perfect world.
Joshua is. So here's the unfair thing about Joshua, right? It's the unfair thing is what people thought he was gonna be versus like what's realistic. Like people thought he was just gonna like walk on water. You know, his potential was unrealistic towards what anybody could really be. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're right.
So then, you know, you have some controversy in your career, but people don't forget what they thought about you, but now you have to deal with things as they're happening. You know?
They have this image of you, but it's also like this is boxing. It's heavyweight boxing. Yeah.
It happens, man. Like, you know, you these guys aren't playing around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I learned something when I trained Amir Khan. I learned a big lesson one night. We went up against Samuel Vargas. Now, to your average person, nobody knows Samuel Vargas. Me and Samuel have a good relationship. Great guy.
Yeah.
He's based out of Canada. Samuel Vargas peaked in the fight with Amir Khan. Completely peaked in the fight with Amir Khan.
In real time.
Had his best camp. Well, he actually had a camp for the fight.
Yeah.
He had fought a few names before. He fought Danny Garcia, if I'm not mistaken. He fought Sean Porter. He fought a couple names before, but then those were like short notice fights. He had, I think, a full 6 or 8 week camp like we did. Just peaked in the fight. Now we won relatively, like there was a wide margin in the scorecards, but he peaked in that fight.
Yeah.
And what that taught me was when you're the guy, people will peak when they fight you. They're gonna bring their A+++ game to fight you.
Yeah.
They may never look like that again, but to fight you,
They're bringing it.
they're bringing it. So
That's
when
it.
you're Anthony Joshua, I am going to do everything I possibly can to fight an Anthony Joshua.
Got it.
And so if you're Anthony Joshua, you can be having an A performance. This guy is having an A+++ performance.
He's sleeping good. He's eating good. He's probably
doing
staying away
everything.
from his girl.
He's doing everything.
Yeah.
He's doing absolutely everything. There's nothing that's going to stop him for this fight, right? And so, like I said, when you're the guy, you need to be at. Side note, this is why I give so much credit to Floyd. But going back to Joshua, when you're the guy, if you have any type of lapse whatsoever, this guy's going to take advantage of it. You know, if you're
He's scouting you. His whole team's scouting.
everything is happening.
Yeah.
Everything
People
is happening.
probably calling him saying,
Everything
this
is
what
happening.
You need to do. This is what I heard. In camp.
Everything is happening. Everything is happening. Everything is happening. Joshua is a great fighter. He really is. You know, he has the skill set. He has, you know, it's hard to. Certain people have more resistance than others, but you know, when you talk about heavyweight boxing, you could say, "Oh, this guy doesn't have a chin. This guy doesn't have a chin." Okay, you get hit by a 260-pound man. Like, we'll see what type of chin that you have.
Let's find it. Yeah.
So,
who's the best fighter?
Right. And
Other
we've seen him go through adversity before. You know, it's not like he fought Klitschko or something, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, we've seen that. So you know, Joshua has everything. You know, he has a good chin. He has good heart. You know, he has a big body. He's a good. You know, at one point he was a very good combination puncher.
Yeah.
You know, very fast hands. Clearly hits hard. You know, like I don't see where these flaws that people say that he have aren't are there.
Yeah.
I think the issue with him now is maybe he's a little gun shy. Maybe.
Yeah.
I think so. The last fight, I didn't like what was happening going into the fight, or when I say that, you can kind of see. Well, at least I've gotten to a point where I can kind of see what the person's game plan is.
Yeah.
Or I can assume what their game plan is. I don't know, right? But I can assume what their game plan is. It looked like Joshua was just trying to land the right hand the whole night against Dubois. So now you take a guy who's a fast, big, good combination puncher with good experience, and you just say, land your right hand. I don't know that is good to do, especially with a dude who will move and not let you just land the right hand.
And is ready for it. That's everybody knows that's the thing. Yeah.
Dubois is very, very athletic. He's a very good fighter. He's been through adversity in his career and come back from it.
Yep.
So like I said, you can't just say, hey, all we got to do is this. It doesn't really happen like that, especially when it's come down to maybe 1 or 2 punches. That's kind of simplicity is great, but you gotta avoid like rudimentary type things, and like to say, hey, we're just gonna land this or we're just gonna land this, like
without setting it up, especially.
And people forget, like, going into that fight, Dubois was a champion.
Yeah,
Dubois was a champion.
That's a good point.
So he's not trying to lose that neither. He's feeling like this is my time right now. I already dealt with the broken orbital bone. I already dealt with the, you know what I mean. So
he feels like he beat Usyk too.
Like I said, like he's done that. In his mind, he put Usyk on the ground.
Yep.
You know what I mean. So like I said, like he's feeling good too.
I'm the dude.
I put down the guy that you had 24 rounds to put down.
I couldn't do it.
And you know what I mean? So like I said, like he's feeling like, okay, this is my time to do this now, Like I said, with Joshua, if I had it my way, Joshua would come to LA and be at Tengu's boxing gym.
Yo, y'all would do just I already know, just knowing what I've seen with the Goosen brothers, and then the fact that you've been working with them for half your life almost.
Yeah.
Man, y'all would do something incredible with him, man. Because he's such a great talent, and he seems to train hard and be dedicated from what I've gathered. And to me, it's just a matter of, like, having the plan and sticking to it, having the right plan and sticking to it.
Yeah.
And I actually think he has some of the most potential of all the heavyweights out there if, like, tuned the right way. And it's like, and I'm a big, as a fan, right? As a fan, I'm a big Joshua fan. But that was tough. Okay, so script the next 8 months. If you could say, not just who do you think's going to win, but if you're like, who would you like to see win? Not as a fan, not just because you like the person, but it will be best for the sport to make the best matchups consecutively between now and like next September.
Did you talking about just heavyweights?
Yeah.
Are we talking about just big names? Because I have a couple heavyweights myself that I like to throw in the mix. But
I think, throw some of it, but it's like something that could likely happen. Like, if Tyson beats Tyson beats Usyk, then maybe Joshua skips a rematch and fights Fury. And then maybe... in
the heavyweight division, it doesn't really matter who loses to who.
We just want to see the fight.
We just want to see the fight anyway.
Okay, talk to me then.
You know what I mean? Because, like, I always give this reference when it comes to heavyweights. There could be... just imagine we're just in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
And there's four sets of little guys fighting. And then one pair of big guys fighting. Yeah. You're going to look at the big guys.
Man, that's who you want to watch.
So that's who you always want to watch.
Can I just say one thing there?
Go ahead.
That's my biggest beef with the promoters and how they match make, is that, like, instead of Deontay fighting Zhang, I would have rather just see him and Joshua, or him and anybody. I just want to see the matchup. I didn't need him to prove that he could beat Zhang so that he could get another title shot as a fan.
I get that. But, there's just dues that need to be in place, right? So, you're saying to yourself, okay, you guys have a common opponent that y'all both lost to. Yeah. You guys are both in your own right in regard a bigger name than the guy that you lost to. Yeah. Okay, fine. Let's see what happens.
Cool.
You know what I mean? I mean, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think they're both bronze medalists in the Olympics, if I'm not mistaken.
That's a good point.
Zhang might have had the silver, but I know he's a medalist. Yeah. So, like, again, like this, these things make sense,
So script it, and you put whoever you want in there, because you know who the guys are that are ready, but maybe we don't know of.
If I had it, okay. Everybody always wants to see Wilder. Now, he's had a tough go his last few fights. But at the end of the day, people still remember, one punch knockouts.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody would bat an eye against Joshua versus Wilder.
that's a big fight.
I really like. Yeah, I would watch. I would say this. I think a good fight would be like a Joe Joyce versus Wilder.
Great fight.
I like Zhang versus Joshua
Ooh,
because and again it's hard to take away the resume of a fighter, but I'm just talking about what they've done lately and what I think would bring the best out of those guys.
yeah. And I think Joshua is straight right because it's so clean now and sharp against a southpaw might actually find its way there quite a bit. Zhang, that straight left though is I think he's going to hit Joshua with it at some point.
Here's the problem though, like with just kind of basing. So Zhang does a very good job of not getting hit with right hands. When you got to look at even like I don't think nobody has a better right hand than Wilder, but Wilder came out kind of throwing his right hand. He parried and hooked it. Like I said, he's very good. He's an Olympic level southpaw. He's gonna know how not to get hit with the right hand.
Yeah.
So, and a world class athlete at that, and he's huge, man.
Yeah.
Fuck, I seen this guy in person one time. I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
It's like that.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know what lab they made this guy in, but but like I said, I like that a lot. I think you could make the Jarrell Miller Joshua fight happen.
Yeah, great fight.
Jarrell Miller versus Deontay Wilder. I think I would that's a great fight.
All right, so then I'll call mine then. I'm going to say Tyson Fury beats Usyk because I think he can, and I had the fight scored 1 point.
You saying hypothetically?
Yeah, if I had to call it for the next 8 months, I'm going to say Tyson Fury beats Usyk because, like I said, I thought he won by 1 point, even though I can see it the other way.
Wait, time out.
Yeah.
You thought Tyson Fury won?
I felt he won.
Oh, man.
I felt he won, and I get it. I know, but I'm just looking at how.
What makes you say that?
Because I tried to score the whole fight in terms of who I would have been, who I would have wanted to be in the ring that night.
You would have rather been the guy that was almost out on his feet.
Yeah, because of what he did for the first 6-7 rounds.
No. What I asked you was,
all right,
you'd rather been on.
You're right. When you look at it like that,
you get what I'm saying? And then here's the thing:
he was making him look stupid.
But
let me ask you. Straight rounds.
Let me ask you this. So again, Tyson Fury was the guy that was pretty much out on his feet.
Yeah, for a moment.
Then you have the guy who didn't really take much punishment, was pressing the action a lot. I mean, he was just on him. He was on him. He was on him the entire fight. Literally, the entire fight.
All right, so
it's kind of hard for me to go the other guy won.
I see it both ways. In the moment, I felt like Tyson could have edged it. But I
understand that.
I fully 100% see how you could score it for Usyk, and you could win that argument.
Because let me ask you this.
But I still think Tyson's going to win the rematch.
So that's interesting too, because when I look at rematches, right, I look at who has more room for improvement. Clearly, Tyson has more room for improvement.
Yeah, because a lot of errors. Some errors.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I thought he had one of his worst performances.
That's a good point.
Now whether Usyk made him have his worst performance,
yeah,
I don't know. But like I said, maybe Tyson just had his worst performance against Usyk that night. And like I said, Usyk's been very busy. Tyson's pretty much been caught up with one guy for maybe 2-3 years.
Yeah.
So again, and then not to mention, certain fighters will take pieces of you with them.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are, how big you are, what type of fighter you are. You regularly getting hit by a guy like Wilder, it's going to slow you down a little bit,
yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
Not to mention...
They have 3 wars.
Two.
1 and
one
a half.
for sure. One for sure. But like I said...
No. 2 for sure. Because
you said war.
The first fight, he knocked Fury down more than once.
He had the most eye-catching moment in the first fight.
Right? So Deontay knocked him down I believe, twice in that fight.
Yeah.
Then the second fight, Fury destroyed him.
Yeah.
Just walked through him. But then the third fight, it was tit for tat. I don't know if you call it a war, but it was a lot of knockdowns.
It was a good fight to watch. It was a very exciting fight to watch.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah, you're right. It's not a war.
I'm gonna be honest with you. With the Tyson Fury Wilder thing, I thought Tyson Fury won. Like if how many rounds did the second fight go? Maybe like 8.
I think maybe 7, 8.
Okay,
In my brain, it was 5, but it was longer than that.
Okay.
You're right.
So let's just say 6, right?
Yeah.
Let's say together they had 30 rounds together, right?
Yeah.
I thought that Tyson probably won like 22, 23 of those
That's
rounds.
a good point.
So you know what I mean? So like I said, like it's like the war thing. The last fight was very exciting, you know, because you had that was the thing. It looked like Tyson Fury was just picking up where he left off in the second fight, and then boom, what? That's the exciting thing about Wilder, because people have all these type of like critiques about him and stuff, but it's like at the end of the day, you can call it like boxing is a science, but part of boxing is fighting.
Yeah.
So now you bring the like very like animalistic side out of you and you're fighting. And if you got a guy that can put you out with one shot, well, the science don't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Yeah. Now we're talking about
that's
biology.
Yeah. So like I said, that's the exciting thing about Wilder. So like I said, Usyk's been very busy fighting just a bunch of different types of guys. You know, he come. I mean, him at cruiserweight is just amazing.
Yeah,
the first time I ever actually found or heard about Usyk, I had no idea who he was. It was in 2015, and this silver medalist I was training, I was asking him, I was like, "Who's your favorite fighter?" And he said Usyk. I never even heard of this guy before. And think about it in 2015, like you don't know who Usyk is unless you like maybe follow Olympic boxing.
Yep.
And at that time, professional boxing was in a good spot. So, like, I don't know how you would follow Olympic boxing. So, anyway, he told me about him. And from then, I was kind of confused about what I was looking at because I just was like, the style, it's like, what's he doing? Like, you know?
Yeah.
And then the more I started watching, I was like, no, this guy's good. This
He's
guy's good. This guy's good. And then you take a bunch of things into consideration where he's a big guy, long arms, he's southpaw. He doesn't stop moving. This guy's tank is on 100.
Yep.
You know, these are big problems, you know.
Prepared, motor, game,
and just everything. Just
technique.
everything. I like to, so Ali's my favorite fighter, right? Mm-hmm. I like to compare guys to him in one facet or another. You know, one of my favorite things about Ali is we know about the movement, but people don't give him enough credit he was always within like arm's reach of you.
Yeah.
And since he was always in arm's reach of you, he was always touching you.
Even though he was moving away from you.
Always, at all times, you know? And then God forbid you were small and just kept coming. I mean, this fight's going to be over pretty quick.
Eat you up.
So, like I said, you know, I like to compare guys to that, especially the movers to that, where you see the type of guys that do these type of things. And Usyk's just one of those guys, you know? He makes you feel like I can't do anything in here. And you see it in these fighters sometimes. They almost quit until they get hit with something and, you know, have to give it up. The worst part about it is, you know, he normally keeps touching you solidly, and he's a strong guy. He touches you solidly to where it goes 12 rounds, and then you get beat up for 12 rounds. It's worse than getting put out, you know what I mean?
Yep, he gonna be there.
So, like I said, Usyk has been very, very busy fighting a bunch of different types of guys, where, like I said, Fury, he's been caught up in pretty much just one guy.
Yeah.
Right? I think Fury's a winner.
Yeah.
Fury's a winner. So is Usyk, but Fury's a winner. He's one of those guys that, you know, he will do what it takes to win. You've seen it a bunch of times.
Yeah, get up.
You've seen it a bunch of times. You've seen it a bunch of times. He tends to run over guys too. And fights that are supposed to be hard, he normally makes relatively easy. I mean, how do you outbox Klitschko?
Yeah.
People forget that happened.
Completely outboxed him.
It was relatively easy. It was so easy. The fight wasn't very climactic.
Yep.
You get what I'm saying?
Yep, I remember that.
So again, you know, this is a guy that, you know, he's in there. He knows what he's doing, and this guy is a mountain. Like,
so who's gonna win?
Like I said,
Who would you bet on? That's a different question, I guess. Who would you bet on if you had to put your money on it?
If I had to, I would say I would go with Usyk.
Got it.
Because
he's won before,
and he's won before. He knows what to do. He had a good game plan to do it, and he's uber smart, man.
Yeah.
Like Fury's a good competitor and he knows what to do and he's very comfortable in the ring. But I would give like the IQ lean to Usyk.
Yeah.
Slightly. But again, like, and because with Usyk's experience, I mean, it just makes the biggest difference. I mean, you get these guys out of the Olympics, like that. By the time you get to the qualifiers, you're better than most pros up until about like 10, 15 fights anyway. Not to mention winning gold medals, and then cruiserweight champion, reigning cruiserweight champion. He cleared out the cruiserweight division. People forget about that tournament that they had.
Yeah. I remember.
Great fighters. He, just cleared them all out. He cleared them all out. Then you go up to heavyweight, and people had this argument to where it's like, oh yeah, but he's a small heavyweight. I'm like, when is 6'4", 230 small?
It's a big dude.
I don't get how that's small. What are you talking about? You know what I mean?
Dude.
So, and then he's had time to really develop into being a heavyweight.
He's smaller than the Giants, but they're Giants.
Yeah, but those you know what I mean? And then in a way it kind of helps him because he's way faster than, what are you talking about? Punch resistance?
Yeah.
Guy doesn't get hit.
Yeah.
What do you mean? And then who's taking Wilder's right hand anyway? Who's taking, you know what I mean? Like these are not things that you have to worry about from the get. You know what I mean? It's a foregone conclusion from the beginning.
Well, look, I think you're 100% right, and I like talking to you because you're so pragmatic and you can back it up with facts. So I think last question I just wanted to ask as a coach, and then next time you come, I really want to dig in just to the craft of boxing, the art, the technique. I want to talk about some of the fighters you've been working on and so on and so forth. But the one last question I wanted to ask is, as a coach, and this is what we'll pick up next time.
Sure.
What do you look for in a fighter, and then what can happen with a fighter where you're saying, I'm out, I'm not the guy for you. No matter how they try to convince you, you say, no.
When you say, what do you look for?
Like what do you look for? Because sometimes, when I want to train somebody, I'm not looking for, how good they are. I love working with people from scratch. But I'm just looking for, a little bit of natural athleticism. And it doesn't have, doesn't have to be the whole package. But some people have power. They have good balance. They have good timing. They naturally have good feet. They just have some athletic quality. I'm like, I can build upon that and show them how to use that. And then they have a little flair. They listen. They ask questions. I'm looking for that and I believe I'll figure out how to make them effective. But then if I have to beg a person to come to the gym, I'm out, right? If I have to encourage them to come to the gym, okay. But if I have to beg you, I'm out.
Even then, I'm not with it.
Yeah.
So I'll give you 3 physical and 3 intangible.
Okay.
So physically, you can start with size.
Yeah.
If you give me a big body in whatever weight class, I'm with it.
Yeah.
I would say speed. Yeah, size, speed, power. Why not? Intangible. I like dudes that when I say this, I don't mean they're a bad person, but I like guys that are just inherently mean. That gets me going. Oh, this guy's an asshole. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can work with that.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So that's definitely an intangible. I like guys that are very, very good. The better you are as a listener, the more I want to work.
Mm-hmm.
It gets me going. The better you are listening, the more I want to work for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's honestly, that's my first one was 1A, 1B is good listener.
Okay.
So we'll say that's 2. 3, you can see when someone has a desire to win. Not just, the guy is talented, so he's better than guys, but a desire to win and a want to do good and better than what he was doing before. You see it. You see it. If you're looking at if you're paying attention to what you might know,
you can smell it.
You can see it in that person. He's locked in. You know what I mean? He's trying. I really do. And you see it even in small things, in sparring. you'll see it with guys where it's like he's really, really trying to grit this thing out, and he's doing good. It's not even like a back and forth thing. It's just he's trying to.
He's competing.
Dan Goosen told me one time, he goes, you have to be able to completely crush your opposition, and I never forgot that. He detailed a few more things that I won't talk about now, but like I said, he told me like you have to be comfortable with just completely crushing your opposition.
Yeah.
And I never forgot that. I love when I'm dealing with guys that will just dominate you. So I like watching Benavidez so much.
Uh-huh. Just keeps coming.
I mean, he's trying. I don't even think he's trying to knock you out. I think he's just trying to like punish you.
Trying to kill you.
You're in the ring with me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And I get goosebumps thinking about.
Yeah.
I started thinking about Dan for a second. But so like I said, yeah, he, that's definitely three things I like, and as far as something that'll make me like not want to deal with the fighter, like I don't know. I have this. It's almost an issue where I really do try to see things through. I really do. I really don't start things unless I'm gonna finish them. And so in turn, when I start something, I'm not the one that calls an end to it.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect. I have my own flaws.
Yeah.
But like I said, for me personally, whenever a thing doesn't work, it's normally because, hey, I'm not the guy for you.
Yeah.
And they wanted a dip or whatever the case may be. Whatever, it's all good, you
Yeah.
know. And I leave things on a good note. I never have. I don't have a problem with nobody.
Got it.
You know what I mean? So if that's what if I could say what would make me say I'm out. I don't know. A lot of times these guys see their way out.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's tough, man. I'll put it like this. The way that I train guys, people tend to weed themselves out.
Yeah.
Because you either have to keep up with the work or you're not going to. And then at that point, like...
You don't show up.
Exactly. Or, when I'm in the gym and I'm really focused, I don't filter anything. So, like, maybe I don't like the way I'm talking. Okay.
You don't have to be here.
Go find someone who's going to baby you. Like, I'm not your mom, not your girlfriend either. You know what I mean? So, like I said, like, that's, for the most part. But I'm trying to think. Like, what would make me...
Well, no, it sounds like if they're going to stay there, then it sounds like your process naturally weeds out the people.
Pretty much. And, because I've had fighters where, man, I trained them for a year. No money involved, no nothing. No fights even.
Yeah.
Fights kept falling through, whatever the case may be.
Stuck with them.
Just training every day like we're going to fight tomorrow. You know what I mean? So, like I said, it's and I even accredit that to Joe because, I mean, he's in his 70s now and he's, he was at the gym yesterday. He's at the gym on a daily basis. Who am I to just go, he's taken all this time to impute all this knowledge to me and show me what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And then now and I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but when I go to other gyms, I'm like, oh, I would never. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, like, again, like, it's why I tend to try to stay at my own gym, And so, like I said, knowing all this stuff, it's kind of hard for me to do anything other than what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, you just do your job, and if they show up,
it's embedded in me. It's kind of hard for me not to. I know when I'm not doing that, and it like eats at me. I can't. It's hard for me to be in the gym and not get what I want out of the gym. Because of what I've been shown. Since I was a teenager, literally. So.
Well, I think honestly I think it's a great way to what you just said to me encapsulates who you are and why I've always respected you, and you're one of those people that like eats, sleeps, and breathes boxing. And I think obviously you've had a lot of success in recent times, but I can tell you're one of those people that would also do it for free. It's like I'm going to be doing it no matter what. But obviously it drives you to success, and look forward to having you back, man, because it's my belief, like I watch the sport close. I try to when I have time, and there are some coaches that, you know how it goes. Every few years there becomes the coach that everybody wants to train with, and then everybody's like coach of the year, and it's, and then something happens, everybody goes to train with them, and so on. People have their moments, But to me, if we're locked into the sport, you knew that was a great coach 3 or 4 years before that.
For sure.
And I personally think, you're one of the top 10 coaches out there,
Thank you.
easily. I really believe that.
Thank you.
And which is why I was excited to have the interview. And I feel like we're going to look up this time next year and everybody's going to be like, oh, we got to get in camp with this guy. So I look forward to having you back on. Next time we talk, I just want to talk the craft. I want to talk about everything you've been doing with Vlad. I want to talk about your heavyweight and some of the other people you've worked with that I won't bring up now.
Sure.
But thank you so much for coming on, man, and making the time, man. And I look forward to working with you, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me too. Seriously.
All right. Thanks, sir.